Touchstone, the first Touchstone film.
This was the very first Touchstone movie, and when we started making the movie, they didn't even know how they were going to release it, and whether they'd have a could you put the Disney name on it?
And Lola and I are proud of this because we made these main titles.
No, these main titles were expensive.
Yeah.
They could have cost $3,000 or $4,000.
Going to Disney, that was like writing at Sears.
Yeah, that's right. I was so depressed when Disney said they were the ones making the movie after we'd gone to every single studio.
They
to try
weren't.
to get
They
it
weren't
done.
really even a movie studio at that point.
Who's that? Who's this guy?
Yeah, Tom who?
When Ron and I ran around with this script, every studio turned us down. And then we ended up at Disney. And at Disney at the time, it was the older management. It wasn't the new guys, Michael Eisner and everybody. And Ron was terrified that the board of directors were going to come into the editing room and snip the film, cut it all apart. And it made him even more scared as he thought he was going to make Daryl Hannah have to wear a bathing suit the entire time.
And
I kept saying they're going to try to make it into a Debbie Reynolds movie or something, with a full bathing suit.
And they wanted to put Goofy in the movie, didn't they?
Well, it turns out that they were, that they were okay. They understood the movie.
Based on a story by Brian Grazer. Well, we all went to the Oscars on this.
Yes,
And I remember writing the original story, which was just a horrible mess. And at that time, the entire movie most of the movie took place underwater. And of course, we were able to get real writers, Lowell Ganson, Bob Lou Mandel, who are sitting to my right, that wrote a script that was so profound that it got made.
Well, it was really great because you had been working on it for some time, but while we were doing Night Shift, Brian, which was also your idea, and which Lola Babalu wrote, you started saying, well, maybe we could just kind of roll over and same team and do this movie, and it's a pretty happy ending to that call.
And there's Ron Howard right there, dropping coins. Actually, we thought this was. I remember seeing this in a rough cut. The coin dropping, I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen.
I always think it's important to get the first laugh.
Yep.
No, you're right.
And crack the audience as quickly as possible.
Those legs belong to Lola and I.
Ralph, talk to him. Father, come on. From over there, we can see Cape Cod. We just
And that little moment gave birth to the movie Parenthood.
But
Slapping the head.
I remember why we all thought of this scene, because when we had the script, we realized that the mermaid did not enter the movie for, I don't know what it is. You can count at home, like 20, 30 minutes.
Yes.
And that's why we put in a prologue where you would get some sense of the mermaid, and then people thought, wow, that was clever. It was just trying to turn a problem, just trying to solve a problem.
It was really interesting too to me, just how much impact it had on the love story. Because once you see these two looking at each other underwater, you're convinced that they belong together forever. And later on in the body of the movie, we actually could simplify a lot of the sort of getting together, falling in love, because you really had felt like you'd seen it in the first scene.
And these kids are 36 now.
No, but you're able to capture the love at first sight right there. Now, this is Brian, and I was the guy that actually cast that little girl. I was sent down to Miami to meet about 80 girls at 6 in the morning after I'd spent the entire night up drinking in a disco in the early 80s.
And he later married that girl. I did what he said.
Oh, my God.
And, of course, this was a modestly budgeted movie. We wound up shooting that whole scene in, like, 2/3 of a day, and with a tiny crew in the Bahamas.
Now, after Apollo 13 and The Grinch, that would take Ron a week.
Hey.
Oh, that's great. Look.
Yeah.
I remember out here at LA, we went out like 3:34 in the morning to visit the produce market while we were writing the script, try to get a sense of what it.
Oh, there's my dad.
Dad Howard.
And look at young Tom Hanks, young and cute and agile.
And of course we wanted stars to be in this movie, and so did the studio. And
so we got
stars weren't so interested. Yes,
no, we couldn't get stars.
Maybe they didn't want to work. Maybe they didn't want to work for this upstart new director, Ron Howard. I don't know.
Well, they didn't actually.
I know.
I mean, in truth, Ron had just done Night Shift, as did Lowell and Bob Lou. It was a great start for all of us, but we weren't stars in any way, and stars didn't really want to work with us. And in fact, when we read Tom Hanks, it was just a great relief, because here was this guy that not only wanted to do the movie, but had perfect timing.
Yeah, he really just came in, and it was, I remember saying after the audition, well, I know he's not a movie star, but if you just wanted somebody who would get every joke and be great in the role, we'd cast this guy.
And it's great when somebody comes in, like Michael Keaton did in Night Shift, and he's the 167th person to come in.
Yeah.
And you've been sort of dissatisfied 166 times. Somebody comes in It's just clear as a bell, you know. It just rings so sweet.
And it was great that the studio was willing to back that up. And then there's John.
Well, that's what helped because John was kind of a star,
comedy star from
yeah,
SCTV.
Yeah, John Candy was our name, and I have a quick story on John Candy. This is Brian. First of all, he got paid 5 times more than every other person on the movie. Literally 5 times more.
And he worked a total of 20 days.
But he was not only our brand, but the comic irreverence that we needed to make the movie, a little bit hip. And I remember I made a deal with him to do the movie, but he said, I can't sign unless I actually sit down and meet you, Brian. And he was awesome in the movie.
And it was me. I bit the whole thing.
Well, I still don't care about it, Freddie.
I love this guy. Do you hear me? I love him. Give me a kiss.
Oh, Freddie.
Give your older brother a kiss. What's the matter? You too big? Give me a...
Great in the movie, great spirit. Tom Hanks just loved getting to work with John Candy.
This guy's head.
Tom had already been on Bosom Buddies. Babalu, this is Lowell. Babalu and I saw him do a guest spot on Happy Days.
That's right.
We were doing one night a week punch up on Happy Days. Had already moved into the movie business, and he came in and did a guest spot.
He came to beat up Fonzie.
He came to beat up Fonzie, and we went crazy.
Yeah, I
we
remember
just
that.
thought he was just dynamic.
And meanwhile,
And he got a reading for the. We mentioned it, and Ron's assistant Louisa said, "Oh, I love him."
that's right. You got to see Bosom Buddies. And then she
Yeah.
started getting tapes of Bosom Buddies, which I hadn't really seen much of. And he's a really talented guy, obviously.
Are there any messages, Mrs. Stimler?
Yes.
Mrs. Stimler.
Now, how did you...
Everybody thinks she's taken off of our actual assistant, Rose, but we hadn't met our assistant yet. Well, she's pretty insulted that people think that she was drawn from.
And oddly enough, Rose has drifted towards this
I
direction.
know. I think she's kind of. I think it's
Mrs. Stimler is based on a friend I had named Ed Stimler, who was a character.
Did he wear his bra on the outside of his?
No, but he was. That's a whole other DVD. There's a joke coming up. We always disagreed on how to shoot it. Oddly enough, Ron got his way.
It's the phone joke. It's
The phone joke.
Listening to the phone joke.
I can remember now, like 20 years later.
Absolutely.
You remember the debate?
I remember the debate.
Still, do you
And
see
you still
it?
feel badly about it, don't
I
you?
don't feel badly about it because
I think your career could have turned a better turn had you shot it right.
you'd be big today if you hadn't booted this joke. Actually, you got 2 laughs. We were going for 1, but we were arguing that we liked our 1 better than your 2.
Oh, I see.
But the thing that's great about John is he played the kind of ultimate hedonist, whereas his brother Tom was the conservative guy that was just missing this one thing, which was love. And John over here, he doesn't care at all. He just wants to go out and go clubbing.
Yeah, and it was interesting because at the time, almost all of the comedies, the leading man was kind of more like John's character than like Tom's. It was all this early Saturday Night Live influence, and
Right.
Bill Murray and Belushi and Chevy, and and that.
It was all irreverence first.
Yeah, the leading man in the comedy was never sort of grounded.
But Hanks had the hardest acting job because he had to be interesting.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
at the same time, not have any real eccentricities or big character hooks like John had.
But it was old-fashioned in the sense that the leading man in the comedy worked with a comedian.
Yes. Oh, yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Victoria. I'm sorry.
In our very first read through for the movie, where we had some of our cast members in place, including Tom, I remember Tom was really pushing.
There
for
was the disagreement right there.
To explain it to me.
Well, because we wanted to discover him later on the phone.
Oh, right. And
When
I liked showing it.
Yes, because
because
the showing it did get a laugh, but we thought it would get a huge laugh if after he had this intimate conversation with his girlfriend about leaving him, you suddenly
Right.
discovered him butting in.
Right.
That was an argument for a day and a half. Go ahead, I interrupted you.
But I remember at the read through, Tom, who's a funny guy, was pushing pretty hard for laughs, and I remember having a conversation with him and saying, your job is to be the real guy. And we've got Eugene Levy and we've got John Candy, and I want you to be entertaining, but you don't have to try to create a lot of comedy. You have to try to create a lot of honesty so that we believe in the love story. And he really took it to heart, and required some discipline on Tom's part.
You're right, Ron. But he did, in fact, have... I mean, if you look at this, he couldn't be too extreme, otherwise you wouldn't be able to live inside of him, and that was the whole key.
I've always felt that one of the reasons the movie really worked is that there is a kind of a traditional screwball quality to the basic storyline. The difference here is that she's a mermaid, not Claudette Colbert. And that's, there was a kind of a blending here of old and new in terms of the styles of comedy and storytelling.
Big
Wait a-
laugh, yeah.
wait a minute,
Big laugh.
exactly.
This is my wife Cheryl, and there's
Yeah.
Louisa Ellis.
Yeah.
my
Yeah,
sister.
but wait a minute. This is a gigantic laugh
Big
like
laugh.
Lowell and Babalu did.
And he's looking at my wife's dress.
That was the killer laugh.
Yep, huge laugh. Especially, of course, because it was set up with the kid.
Something works
In
with
the
me, I
prologue.
stick with it. But as Lowell, Babalu and I, we still use that phrase like in our work.
So do I.
If we realize we've repeated ourselves at some point before we fix it, we say, "Hey, something works." We stick with it.
Just fruit. And by the time I came home, she was already gone.
Victoria left, huh?
Yeah. You know why she left me, Freddie? Because I didn't love her.
That bitch.
See, we got quiet and cleared for the laugh because we're professionals.
The man,
But
their timing. Two guys with timing. There goes
Yeah,
Cheryl
well,
and
this
Louisa
is
again.
Brian. I mean, they made John compassionate there for a minute.
We did work on those moments actually with John. That's another thing that John and I talked about. Is that, we wanted that the irreverence, but a little some humanity to kind of
Sensitive, she was
sort
beautiful.
of peek its head from time to time.
Where's Victoria?
Flu. Bad flu. She's very sick and she can't.
But this is the scene where you could sort of see that even though, as you say, Tom was playing the solid
Right.
character, you could just see he had that comic madness in him.
And he's entertaining.
Yeah.
He's entertaining in the role without straining for jokes.
Where's that pretty lady of yours?
She's not coming, okay? What, you want your money back?
And
that
usually-
actually got a pretty big laugh too.
Yeah,
That's
and I
fine.
think he topped it.
Yeah.
'Cause
Maybe it's all for the best.
And usually I did.
She
here's-
left me! She moved out and my life's in shambles, okay? That's the news. You want the weather? Anyway,
That's a Howard.
And there's the Clint Howard cameo.
As is every other extra in that is a Howard.
But usually I tend to be a lot more cutty in the coverage and things like that, more close-ups over the shoulders. But that was important to sort of see, from a comedy standpoint, to see his intensity build, him start to become really agitated all in one shot. But
Now,
this is a
Ron,
reshoot.
I was going to say, Ron, this is the reshoot that Disney made us pay for with their own money. No, they didn't really make us pay for
you
it.
had to sell your car, didn't you?
Well,
Yeah,
check out
but-
John Candy's hair.
But it was so important, this reshoot. It was critical because the audience just needed to know what he was missing, and he had to, he had to state it.
He had to come out and say it. And fortunately, Lola and Babalu knew how to make that funny.
Ooh, that hurt. Isn't that a beautiful wedding ceremony?
I haven't seen this movie since it was released. I mean, I loved it and saw it in theaters for 6 weeks after it was in theaters, but after it was released. But I haven't seen it since. Just scenes here and there.
People make fun of us sometimes that we laugh at our own jokes, but I swear I laugh at
think
the
we're laughing.
performances.
That's exactly it.
That's
We're not
exactly
laughing
what
at a joke.
happens. It's the same reason I can laugh at Jackie Gleason and the Honeymooners do the same joke 300 times. It's just the performance you can laugh at forever.
Now, this is how Lola and Babalu defend their comic narcissism.
Now we always say acting is funnier than writing.
I think that's beautiful. Thanks. Listen, I don't live too far from here. Why don't we just go to my place for a quiet drink? I can get this.
Do I expect too much?
My dress? I can't believe this.
I'm sorry.
Hey, what are you doing? Both of you, you're crazy.
Because I think there was a longer scene in a cab at one point.
I don't
When he
ask.
drove-
There was a scene after this that got cut out.
Yeah, so we needed this scene to.
Right.
And this was better.
But also, this was more, it was funnier, but it was also a lot more emotional. And he does come out and say,
I want to see my kid in a play.
See him play a tooth in the
Yeah.
school play.
yeah, he wants a lot. He wants to get married. He wants love.
I'm kidding myself. This is never going to happen. I'm going to grow old and I'm
Going to win 2 Academy
grow
Awards.
lonely.
Yeah,
What a
he's-
baby face.
Well, he's so good here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's so good.
Well,
He
that was
sells us
first
completely.
movie.
That's what was incredible to me is that Tom Hanks's absolute confidence that whether he actually felt it or not, he took a leadership role in this movie, even though it was his first film, simply by being so together. I remember when we had to do a filmed test with Daryl Hannah. You remember that, Brian, right?
Of course. Oh my God.
And Tom had the job. The studio had committed, but they really wanted to test Daryl Hannah. And Tom was like this seasoned veteran to me. I mean, just the way he sort of soothed Daryl, the way he coordinated, helped make sure the scene worked really well and played well, and I knew that he had to be feeling that he was kind of being tested as well because we were getting him on film too. And I remember going up to him saying, "Look, I'm going to play it all over your shoulder. You don't have to worry about it. You're not being tested here." He said, "Hey, man, whatever it takes." And he was cool as a cucumber.
Oh my God. Yeah, Tom was always not only professional but so relaxed about it. But I remember the Daryl Hannah part as you bring it up.
Can I have some then?
We did first we did a tape test, then we were asked to do a screen test, and I remember Ron Miller, who was the son-in-law of Walt, went off to Europe, and we figured, well, he's not in town, let's hire.
Yeah, you managed to kind of you pick your spots, Brian, but you managed to get away with these things. I don't know. We kept our jobs.
You got the cash? What is this?
See this? You see that? It says this end up. You know what that
I was
means?
always amazed because Daryl had actually been in some movies, and here they pulled the trigger on and agreed to hiring Tom Hanks, who was only really had been on television, and yet they were so worried about Daryl Hannah, who hadn't done a lead role, but
She was in Blade Runner.
Done a good job.
But I
with
guess
that.
it was probably hard for anybody to imagine who's going to be a mermaid and who can pull that off.
Yeah.
But also, Daryl had this other feature that was pretty extraordinary and worked to our benefit, is that she didn't require a stunt double because it turned out she was an excellent swimmer.
Well, in fact, we had a stunt double, and someone who had done a mermaid show in Florida, very athletic, great. But Daryl had just a sort of a natural grace underwater that was just sensual and ethereal and beautiful. And I remember going to Daryl and saying, we have a double, we'll use a double if we really have to, but you'll be helping the character and helping the movie if you can do 100% of this. And I think it is about 99.9% Daryl underwater.
I remember Lowell and Babalu wanting to be those doubles.
This is Eugene. Babalu and I were both SCTV fanatics.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And we got John and Eugene in this movie. I remember there was a script reading at Ron's house where the only people there, I think, were Tom and Daryl, Eugene and John. Eugene and John read every other part in the movie.
Oh, that's right.
And it was the best version of the movie. The funniest.
Yep.
I'd say they just went from characters. These guys are just home run hitters. They're just amazing comic actors.
What's the name?
The guy or the island?
What's interesting here is that, in terms of what you can get away with, this is Ron.
I'll tell you what's interesting is that we got nominated for that joke.
Oh, now, Babalu.
Oh,
Don't
come
sell
on
yourself
now.
Short. Come on. This is one of my favorite scenes coming up.
This is Fat Jack.
Fat Jack.
Mr. Fat Jack.
Oh my!
Yes, Mr. Fat. Exactly,
We
Babalu.
had a whole. I remember now. We had a whole run here about how this guy had bought all the land under the ocean.
Yes, I
because,
remember that.
because he had read somewhere some special on PBS that the water was going to roll back in about 1 million years, and that way his descendants would be rich. They own all this land. Something.
cut-
Ron thankfully made us cut that. We did help occasionally.
I loved shooting all the water stuff on this movie because we. Insane that he's just left out here. I love that reading. Where are you going, Mr. Fat Jack?
You'll notice he's swimming out to sea.
But I loved shooting all this because it was all done with this tiny crew. It was really, like about an 8-person crew. And we got a lot of
Guerrilla
great work
movie
done.
making.
Guerrilla movie making. Yeah.
I knew that guy was spying on me. I want to go down.
Well, Eugene was a little bit of a paranoid.
Hey, Mr. Cornbeef,
Corn blue.
what you looking for down there? Buried treasure?
Want to know what I'm looking for, boys? I'll tell you. None of your goddamn business. That's what I'm looking for. Get out of my way.
That's really funny. Where'd you get that shot, Ron?
We shot that at the end of the day. Went out on a little Zodiac or something and shot it handheld. That scene was actually done in California. This one is Florida. The Bahamas. Sorry.
I'm always amazed by that directors, any number of years later, can remember the circumstances of each shot and each take.
Well, you spend so much time preparing it and worrying about it, and will it match and will it not, that it's just sort of, those details are embedded.
Because you've always had the ability to not let that force you to fall in love with a shot just because it took a lot to get it on film.
Now, I always think you become another person when you get to the editing room, and your attitude has to be, what idiot directed this movie? and why did he do it so badly? Let's fix it.
What was the length of the first cut of this, Ron?
What about 240, 245? Do you remember, guys? Was it that long?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
Now, let's credit Lowell and Babalu here. They have great editorial minds.
Absolutely.
You want to work again, Ron?
Cut it! Cut it!
Damn thing.
In fact, you guys are far more ruthless, Lowell and Babalu, in the editing room than I am. You
Well-
want to get rid of things instantly, and I always want to live with them for a
Our
while.
theory is
Our
when
own
we're,
jokes.
When
We
we're
were
living
the
in
first to
Woodland
cut them.
Hills retirement home and we're widowers or something like that, we want to impress the elderly women. Let's put in one of our old movies.
Better no joke than a bad
Yeah.
joke. And look how long before she's in the movie.
Look
Yeah.
how striking Daryl was.
And-
That was a big thing for us.
And if you look close, Lowell and I are behind that bush with her.
She just had enormous charisma.
And she also really, this sounds silly, she thoroughly understood this role. There's sort of an animal quality that Daryl has, and she you know, just the way she moved and looked and
Do you
you
speak
know,
English?
studied the world, examined the world in her own way. Just she seemed like
These
she was from
close-ups,
another place.
these close-ups were so important. I remember.
Yeah.
She's playing a completely unneurotic character,
Yeah, yeah.
which usually doesn't create comedy. Mental health is not funny, as a rule. But
That tiny bit of nudity is what, of course, made the movie PG, and I guess maybe a couple of lines of dialogue. But that was exactly the kind of thing that I was terrified was going to be cut out of the film or disallowed. And of course, at that time, as a director, I didn't have final cut. But you know, as modest as a shot like that is, I was afraid they weren't going to allow that to be in a Disney film. And ultimately, they wouldn't. And which is but they liked the movie, and so they decided to develop the Touchstone label.
I don't know how to swim. Come back.
That's right. As Brian, this was our very first Touchstone film. That, in fact, Michael Eisner became very supportive of and has expanded into its own brand.
that was a cool thing.
That was
That
really
shot.
good.
How did you do that, Ryan?
That was hard. There was a catapult underwater with a stunt person with the tail on, and and it literally was charged and propelled the stunt person up in the air. But it was something that was set there, 2 days before, tested.
I remember, Ron, this is Brian. I remember, Ron, you'd asked me about that shot. Do you care about that shot? Do you want to see her go up higher? What do you feel? And I remember feeling that any time that the mermaid could have power moments that would differentiate her from a human being, that it was extremely relevant to the nature of the movie.
Well, you were right, but we were really watching our pennies, and that kind of thing cost money. I don't know if I've maybe the weightless scenes in Apollo 13 and the underwater scenes in Splash are probably just the most sheer fun that I've ever had, filming anything.
Why?
Because it was like an adventure. I'm not a very adventuresome person, and in fact, I tend to play things kind of safe in my personal life. And just to be shooting in these alien environments and still working creatively, trying to communicate with actors, which was next to impossible, get a day's work done. It was just really gratifying and exciting. And the visuals, the dailies were, beautiful. I never shot anything like a shot like that. Is really thrilling when you see it in dailies.
Yeah, I remember you actually going out every morning, and you'd do the same thing they were doing. You'd go from respirator to respirator underwater in order to capture the shot. Of course, I was in the bar.
No, you weren't. You were not in the bar.
I know.
On his own respirator.
That's right. My kids are going to be watching this.
so this was the only part of the movie Babalu and I weren't even around the shoot for.
Right.
Is the water moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not a lot of jokes under there.
No, if we can't pitch a joke, we stay in the office.
Well, this stuff's incredibly hard to shoot.
Now, but where is this boat? Where was this ship?
This was in the Bahamas, and near where they used to shoot a lot of Flipper. Remember Flipper, the dolphin?
So was this ship built
ship?
for the movie, or is this?
Yeah,
just...
Jack Hollis, the production designer, built this ship and sank it.
Well, we're watching this right now, just capturing this. These are just seconds. You're able to capture only seconds of time, and
well,
then
because
she has to get to a respirator and restart.
She's holding her breath. I mean, keep in mind, and she's a tremendous athlete. I mean, she could swim like
She's
that.
wearing that thing.
She could swim like that for 50 seconds. I mean, so it's hard enough to hold your breath for 50 seconds, let alone be exerting that kind of energy. Remember, we cut out that whole undersea world. There was a whole scene with we called her the sea hag.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I remember that.
As people remember that.
Absolutely.
Oh my
Yeah.
God! I thought this was hysterical. Lowell and Bablu cooked this up.
I've got a couple of people who work for me that I keep thinking are going to show up in the bra outside their blouse someday.
And one of them is Brian. Uh-oh, get ready, ladies and gentlemen.
Here comes Lowell.
Oh yeah, well,
This is me.
this was the hardest shooting
Lowell,
day.
the writer, is now acting.
This is a tough day. I'm
I was
acting.
so.
There I
There's
am.
Lowell. There's Lowell Gans, ladies and gentlemen. Stan, the tour guide.
And he already had the outfit because he wore it to work.
Now, none of us were allowed
This shot-
to look
Right.
at that. All those people, there's a lot of extras there.
No one can
Were under
look.
shock because she was, quite understandably self-conscious about walking around naked in public.
And that shot had to occur before 8 a.m., which is when they started letting tours arrive.
Well, I never asked you, by the way. Was she naked, Ron?
No,
she wore little
She had
pasties
little
and-
pasties and things like that. But this was all shot. This was like 56 setups with extras. Her, there you go, good delivery. Daryl and her, and nudity and the public. And I had about 102 temperature all day long. I was sick as
Oh
a dog.
yeah, I remember. Oh man, you were bad.
I was laying down under the camera trying to watch the scenes, and still we had this just
And I
horrendous amount of work.
was trying to catch a plane.
Yeah, that's
Bablu, did you act in this movie? I don't
Yes,
know.
I did.
yeah,
Oh,
Bob
he's got a
Wilson
big
later.
laugh
Got a
coming
good-
up in this later
Yes,
in
it
the movie.
was when I turned Tom Hanks' career around. He said, I'm thinking of quitting. I'll tell you about that when we get there.
Okay.
So we're still on the same day of shooting. When we did this shot, I literally was just, you know, so dizzy I could barely focus. This is still the same day of shooting.
That was good structure. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm praising us. I don't mean to, but you know, the fact that she found the wallet and brought the wallet back with her, and that's how the police contacted him. That was nice.
Doesn't have the slightest clue what's going on.
Don't worry about it. We'll move it up.
Bobby DeChico.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shecky Green, great classical nightclub comic, still around.
Shecky had more in the movie, and he was funny.
Yes,
but we
yeah.
wound up cutting it for flow, just
Yeah.
for tempo.
Grenade going off in your helmet. Does it still bother you wearing a bandage?
Jason. Damn. Yeah. Oh.
And Bobby DeChico, of course, was in our first movie, Night Shift. He
Right.
got huge
Yes.
laughs.
Oh, he got one of the biggest laughs we ever got
Yes,
in a
he
movie.
was Leonard Carboni.
Leonard Carboni, that Barney Rubble,
Barney
what an
Rubble,
actor.
what an actor, yeah.
Don Peterman, cinematographer on this film, and I worked with him as recently as The Grinch, Academy Award nominated DP, really taught me a lot on this film because you know, he really didn't want to approach it just the way you shoot every normal comedy, you know, and it's sort of absolutely straightforward, flat lighting and that sort of thing. And there's a much more naturalistic, you know, kind of stylish approach. And for me as a younger director, it was a good experience, good learning experience.
You really could just pretty much put John on camera and tell him what his attitude was, and he'd get your laughs.
Absolutely.
I mean, beyond what was on the page, he was just a comic animal.
But it wasn't like John, you know, improvised very much. Really, he wasn't changing the words much, but
No.
the attitude, was,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
was what he was inventing, and it.
No, in that sense, he's the writer's dream because
Yeah.
he does your words, but also, you know, it just makes it funnier than you wrote it.
But more important, he was human and in the movie.
Yeah.
As opposed to.
You guys called me.
Hey!
Some of his other things.
You guys called for an Ellen Bauer? Bauer? Oh, yeah, that's for her. Right over there.
But see, now getting back to Don Peterman and the lighting, this is not your usual sort of, you know, flat lit comedy lighting. It's much more beautiful, you know, aesthetically appealing and romantic.
The whole composition of this is I think, very effective because this gentle, non-intrusive score is, you know, emotionally impactful too. It's all working on kind of a subtle basis.
Yeah, Lee Holdridge was the composer on this film. Did a great job.
I take it you know this girl.
Yeah, I do.
Who is she?
I don't know.
Of course.
Again, that was that idea of her being a completely unneurotic, kind of a completely unself-conscious character.
Yeah.
Bar, you're home early today. Yeah.
It's sort of a male fantasy, yet somehow you hit some kind of a level so that women were not put off by it. They weren't going, oh, you know, there's a classic male fantasy kind of movie, you know, the perfect,
Well, because
the perfect girl.
because her power was the fact that she was so honest.
Also, but that's almost Lowell's almost speaking to the genesis of the project. Tell the story about you driving along the beach. You should, Brian.
Well, basically,
It's your idea for the movie, and that's where it happened.
thank you, Ron. But basically, you know, I'd been a producer earlier and living in Hollywood, and I just thought, I was single, and I thought, is there such a girl that could be pretty and honest at the same time, emotionally honest? And I thought, living in Hollywood, probably not. So I thought, well, why don't I just create what would be the perfect girl for me, which would be someone that's pretty but is emotionally honest and doesn't play games and is you know, is cool. And I created the sort of rules of what that would be or the definition of that, and then put the symbol of a mermaid on top of it, and that became sort of the mythology of the character. I didn't know how to write that, of course. I just had the feeling of such a thing. And as Ron said, it all became kind of catalyzed as I drove down Pacific Coast Highway, is a place I live, and looked out in the ocean. I thought, well, that's it, a mermaid.
Choice. You got 3 pebbles, some pancakes, some omelets.
And that's the
No,
story.
No. I've got to get back
Didn't
to
he
work.
once have work at the fish market? Didn't you remember that? That version?
In the original
Yes,
script before we were involved,
Yeah,
he worked at
the
Fish
Fulton
Market.
Fish Market.
Fulton
Just
Fish
thought it was a
Market.
little too cute.
Yes, and
In my robe.
you remember the cats that used to follow her?
Bye-bye.
No, oh, you're joking.
No,
right?
I'm serious.
Yes,
in
yes.
an early version, because she was a fish or something.
Yes,
Oh.
cats followed her down the street.
Yes.
Well, that's actually pretty good.
Can we get it back
Can we
in?
still do it?
I don't know.
Because you know, this digital stuff, it's magic. You can do anything.
Well, you really could. But you look at this.
Again, the lighting is really beautiful. I mean, it's
See, there's no pretense here at all. It's not pretentious in any way, and that it sort of is about the purity of their relationship. That makes you fall in love with Tom and Daryl here.
now this. I had somebody literally a week ago come up to me and talk about this scene, like this kind of 18-year-old girl.
You mean the Mr. Mango on my
Mr.
shoulder?
Mango
scene?
on my shoulder.
Well, what did he say, Ron?
She did. She said they said in their family that they always wanted to sing Mr. Mango on my shoulder.
And of course, it was done because you could use the song because it was
Right.
a Disney song.
Right.
But this is Brian. It's a perfect song because look at him. He's so liberated. He's experiencing ecstasy in front of us, which is something that this character hadn't experienced before.
He was so proud. Tom Hanks, his Ron, was so proud to be able to juggle in this because Peter Scolari, his acting partner in Bosom Buddies, is a great juggler and
yeah.
taught him how to juggle, and he was just so delighted that he could juggle in the movie.
And climb.
This whole sequence comes out. This is Lowell talking. Babalu and I have a phrase we use sometime. When in doubt, let's try the truth. If we can't think of something, let's go with truth. Was to just be really measured and careful. How would she
Learn.
go? So how would she learn? How would she get out? What is the first step? How would she? Really try to do it absolutely by the numbers. Not try to be. Be inventive, but inventive within the context of how would it actually work if it could work.
Well, this is Brian. Lowell and Babalu did a genius job of that because it was a way to define how she would gain knowledge and who she was, and this upcoming sequence, which I don't want to blow it, but it became like one of the seminal moments of the movie.
It also makes her, despite her innocence, smart. Because the fact that she can, begin to assimilate herself this quickly through observation is again, kind of a powerful idea.
Remember, this was such a big deal for all of us to be able to shut down Bloomingdale's and work in Bloomingdale's for a minute.
But again, we had to get there at like 4 in the morning and be done by 9.
And now Brian can do that by just saying, I'm coming there to shop.
Oh my God.
Well, she looks incredible.
Yes, she does.
Yeah, fantastic.
This is an easy, embraceable movie, you know? It's just...
Yeah, I noticed that
There are no
when I
movies-
went to see the movie with audience that jokes were getting laughs to me out of proportion to the craftsmanship of the joke themselves, which is what happens, I think, when an audience just simply decides they want to enjoy the movie.
And they like the characters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Embrace the characters.
Take me on
Yeah.
this ride with you.
We could write better jokes and get smaller laughs in a movie, where you're just sort of, fighting the audience for their affection.
And doesn't she look good?
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite scenes.
Mine too. This is Brian, and
This is the Jim Ritz scene?
Jim Ritz, my buddy Jim Ritz, used to
Oh,
be a
yeah.
writer on Happy Days.
Yes, our pal. Yeah.
but after this scene worked the way it did, this is Brian. I've noticed that other movies had sequences that expanded upon this in some way.
I also always felt that this is sort of where people thoroughly embraced the movie. I always felt it was almost like a pivot point. The laugh was so huge. I just felt that at that point they felt they were in
you realize how
absolutely in
different
safe hands, and it was going to be a ride that they were going to enjoy.
Exactly,
going.
and you realized how different she was.
Now, Tom was always doing little bits, especially little physical bits. And I remember this particular take was something that he asked to do this way, and I had wanted him to do it just kind of more straightforward, kind of simple. And he wanted to do this bit where we tried both elevators, and I did it more as just a kind of a concession, but thinking that's a little over the top. We're not going to use that. When I got to the editing room and tested it with audiences and everything, of course it was the best way to go. And I remember thinking that there were about 6 or 7 of those instances where Hanks's instincts, in fact, had proven to be really strong. And I remember thinking, if I ever work with him again, I'm going to trust this guy more.
See, this was the big song at the time.
Yeah, that's right. We had to fight to get them to pay for that song. There's Jim Ritz. He's also he has a good part in Apollo 13. He's the guy who puts together the scrubber, leads the team that puts together the scrubber.
Exercising. Give her a...
Sir, we're posing. Yeah, I know.
This is actually cut together so well.
You can time me.
This is the second time that I worked with Dan Hanley and Mike Hill.
Thank God.
And we're still working with them.
Do you know this woman?
They're nominated this year for A Beautiful Mind.
Oh, you worked that in subtly, didn't you?
Let's get this DVD out right away.
They won for Apollo, didn't they?
And they won for Apollo 13.
Yeah.
How was your day?
People were just shocked that she could.
Excuse me, I
you
never
can
went to
speak.
college, but wasn't that English?
Thank you for letting me use your television. It was very educational.
It's all right, miss.
What's your name?
It's hard to
Oh,
say
there's a
in
laugh.
English.
Well, just say it in your language.
All right. My name is.
Half the budget with those effects.
Tom was fighting a little smile there, wasn't
Hey,
he?
how about those Knicks?
That line, "How about those Knicks," was really funny and really original. And I've seen it proliferate into with other writers and other things
Dozens
over
of
the
buttons.
It's become a comedy style. Yeah.
And we get a check every time.
Yeah, that's true, Lowell. It's become kind of a comedy style.
Or a brand new car.
Whoa. Let me go first, okay?
Shooting in Manhattan, which was a little more of an adventure in the early '80s
Oh, yeah.
than it is now.
Oh, yeah.
But always had kind of an energy. I had shot in the streets for night shift, and we shot a good portion of Splash in Manhattan. But it forces a kind of energy into the scenes. There's not a lot of time. You have to hurry up. The police are pushing you around. You only have so much, and it's hard to control the crowds. And yet you're not going to get a lot of takes. But there's just something very real and exciting about being there. And I think it always informs the scenes and infuses it with a kind of energy.
Sure does.
Well, then why were you in Cape Cod? Why you're now in New York? And how was it that the cops found you naked?
McQuaid.
Lone Wolf McQuaid. Lowell and I wrote that also.
I like it. I heard them in the television. Dance Fever.
Hi. We better go, hon, or else we'll be late. You never heard music?
What's that?
This is again what Brian was talking about showing her power.
Yes.
Just dancing and just that
Yeah.
being in charge.
Well, there's Flashdance that was playing, and Don Peterman shot Flashdance,
Oh,
and he was he got the biggest kick out of shooting in front of a theater that was playing Flashdance, which was a sleeper hit. That was ultimately going to get him an Academy Award nomination for Best Cinematography.
For being such a short time in New York, we got so much of New York. If you look at it, in every frame, there's really, you're tasting New York.
Well, Ron had good energy in those days.
And a damn good-looking mustache, too.
Now I believe this is 42nd Street, which is so transformed, and look how everything is sort of triple X on that street.
Oh, this is
now.
the old. We shot down there on night
And we
shifts
shot-
also.
that-
It's like
that's right.
it was horrible, but it was great. It was great to shoot because it just said something immediately when you saw it.
And now, of course, it's it's much more Disney-fied, as they say.
Ironically,
Ironically.
What? Is there some sort of immigration problem or something?
Here's a
got
subtle
the blind
joke.
man's
Look at this.
pencil.
That's so cute.
Look at this.
Yeah,
Oh, for...
but light. He directed it light.
Sir? There you are, sir. There you go.
Look at Hanks. He's so winning.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to have to call you something in English because I can't even pronounce
What are English names?
Well, English. Well, there's millions of them, I guess.
I always thought this
Jennifer,
scene was
Jody,
important because it's about
Hillary,
naming
Emily.
the character, naming Madison. It's kind of
Names,
sweet, but I always thought it was just
Linda,
kind of straightforward. And again, Hanks's performance was just so winning and so honest and just appealing
how
that
many-
it became a scene about sort of charm that really worked.
And how many little girls were named after this?
Yeah.
No, you're right, Bob.
Yeah, it actually became a popular girl's name for a few years.
Here's the thing. I was going to find you a hotel, but I figured that after this afternoon, well, I just assumed that.
Again, you're looking for the real here. How would it work out that she would live with him? Why would it happen? You're trying to remove for a moment the idea that she's a fish.
Right.
And she wasn't about to live with my parents in the Bronx.
Yeah. How would it actually go? You always try, they say, as a last resort, you try honesty.
Yeah.
But look at their eyes. Look at these eyes.
Yes.
I know.
There's our clock.
Yeah. A little pressure. The moon. Well, she has a line earlier about till the full moon, until the
Yeah.
moon is full.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what that does is it ignites some urgency and some mystery that's gonna precede us here.
But you're right, we did add that clock just literally to give it a little tension.
Yeah,
So it wasn't just a shot of the moon.
That's something they're always talking about in almost every movie, comedy, drama, everything. What's the clock?
You talk about structure, you read books about it, you analyze structure. I've decided that more than anything, that structure is suspense. Whatever the tone, whatever
Including
the
in
genre,
comedy.
especially in comedy,
Yeah.
that it's really about is one scene pulling you, to the next. This was the first big special effects shot that I ever did.
Oh my God, it was a Lumicrane. And I said, Ron, what's a Lumicrane?
Yeah, it was a camera that could reach in the set, starting all the way down by the doorway and coming into this bathroom, which was built on a stage. And this was a carefully storyboarded shot. Now there are no digital effects at this time, so this is all. There was one cut. That was the only cut. This is all floor effects. These are all special effects that are literally makeup. There she has a special appliance on her leg with a vacuum that could pull out the scales, draw the scales out, and a tail built into the tub. So in one shot, we see the scales beginning to happen as she returns to her.
But it
native form.
also again, it comes out of the trying to logic through. Even though it's a fantasy, but we had to start dealing. She'll have legs on the land, fins,
Right.
in water, and you started to find scenes like this, started to invent scenes like this based on, coming right out of, what would be the true.
Well, fantasy always needs rules. And
Yeah.
we established some rules.
And this is Brian, and the imagery here of her in the bathtub, with Tom coming to the door, this imagery is so relevant to her mortality. And that mortality intersects so much with the clock of the movie. It's urgency.
It actually, this is Lowell, it actually was amazing to me how worked up the audience got
This was genuine suspense.
during this sequence.
Madison, are you all right?
Played for real suspense.
Well, then let me in.
I'll be right there. I'm just changing.
Enough is enough.
That always gotta
Come on,
laugh.
open the door. Something is wrong.
And what I mean,
But not played for laughs.
Right.
Madison.
and what I mean, this Brian, what I mean by mortality is that
I'm going to break it down.
the mortality of their relationship and her personal mortality. Is she going to die? Is she not going to die? What's going to happen? So it's beyond just discovery. And now everything's okay for a minute.
Or when that shot where she pulls her legs around.
You okay?
You could with a good full audience, you could actually hear a little sigh of relief. And she looks awfully cute there, doesn't she?
And so do you, Ron.
Why, thanks, Babalu.
Well, Ron needs a little love. It's Academy time.
And then, again, structurally, there's really sort of, for a moment, no place for the movie to go at that point. Once you get through that scene, there's no suspense or tension hanging
In their relationship.
in
at
their
that point.
relationship.
So you need
and
to
it
create
needs,
new.
Yes, and that's, and as an audience, you've sort of forgotten about Eugene
Right.
at this point. It's and he shows up, and it starts the movie again.
Yeah? You see this hose? This is so I can breathe. You want to get your chair off it?
Good little
great
sound effect
effect.
there.
Yeah.
The Star Confidential?
There's another line we use
Why are you reading it?
regularly.
I don't know.
Eugene coming up.
What possesses the uneducated to purchase
Would that be you're not helping
You're
yourself?
not helping yourself. It's become an all. You're not helping. It's
yourself.
become an all-purpose comment for us about when we see things going wrong.
What's in here? Nothing. You have sex. You have perversion. It's all fabrication. Look at this. A naked woman at the Statue of Liberty. Where would they find a girl to do that? Right here with the... Oh, my head. Let me see that. Take me back to shore. Now!
We couldn't afford a second photograph. So that's why we had to cut as soon as he turned the page. We could only afford one photograph in a newspaper.
Madison, what is it?
This is another scene that I really enjoyed directing.
It's Bonanza.
Yeah, that's one of those fill-it-in jokes.
Yeah.
You work for like days. What would be the funniest thing for him to, funniest show name for him to say at that? But you never know for sure.
Right.
TV. See, this is make believe.
But I love the way she responds to the present here. In a few minutes. Again, it seems totally truthful.
He'll get shot on another show.
And then we were going to do a callback where
God,
she
it's
witnesses a
kinda
plane crash on the news and thinks it's a show.
And starts
Oh, yeah.
laughing.
Yeah,
Starts
yeah,
laughing.
yeah.
It was
Oh, I
ill-
remember
ill
that.
we
appropriate.
we
Yes.
wanted to pay it off, but
Yeah.
some of them you just let go.
Yeah.
I got you something.
It's so sweet.
Watching the movie again and looking at Daryl's performance, you know, it's really an excellent performance, but it is so committed in its innocence, and yet you totally believe her naivete because she's a mermaid.
And he's giving her so much space here. I mean, as an actor.
Yeah.
You know, he's not fiddling, he's not mug, you know, I mean,
Right.
He's pointing.
Yeah.
He's saying, look at her.
Yes, a comedy pointer.
Yes.
But I love that she was happy with the box.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful present as far as
Yeah.
she was concerned.
And that's me and Mrs. Babalu. We're little people. I feel a runtage coming up.
Well, what's interesting about this, you know, is you talk about how many scenes we'll write and inventions to show that they're falling in love and everything, and then you get it out there and you go, well, you don't need it.
Well, I remember we made a lot of cuts in here because
Yeah.
it was a much longer montage and a couple of small scenes. And again, I think it goes back to that prologue because that made such an impression on audiences that from that point on, you believe these two, you know, were destined to be together,
And
or
that-
certainly belonged together,
And the kiss in the police station.
and the kiss in the police station. And the fact that she wants sex right away. I think that, don't you? Pretty much seals the deal.
I'm just curious, did she come on to you guys also? I never brought that up. I was just curious. I could not come to the set.
she wept over you.
Yes.
Babalu, I can't. I've done everything I can, Ron.
My little chipmunk, she kept calling me.
Where do we shoot this, Ron?
We shot this on
Central Park?
on the east side.
Oh, yeah, of
I
course.
forget the words. What's the, I understand.
No.
Did you?
And I saw this in Orlando
No.
that they have
No, I didn't, but-
they have this fountain.
When I was underwater,
really?
Yeah,
I could've
placed at the
sworn
theme
I
park
saw
and made me
it
feel
was,
I got a kick out of that.
What?
Don't get sentimental on him.
Nothing.
Might have to take a break.
Go out and shoot a movie, boy.
Compose myself. Yeah, I need to go shoot an action scene.
Why?
I gotta build some riverfront condos or some such nonsense.
Sutton Place.
Do.
Sutton Place. That's it. That is where we did it.
Yeah.
That was Brian.
And
Yeah.
Brian now owns that bridge. He's a sentimental boy, isn't he? As a kid, this is where my arms would be going up in the air out of embarrassment.
Why do we want to go to a political dinner?
Because the president will be speaking.
President of what?
President of the Three Stooges fan club.
This was a tough day of shooting because John had been out. Jack Nicholson kept John out all night long. The night we had to shoot this sequence,
Listen,
he just kept and John said, "I'm so sorry." He was just completely hungover. He said, "I'm so sorry." Jack just kept saying, "It'll be all right. You'll be fine tomorrow."
And you know, I remember before we shot the scene, and when Lowell Bob will speak to the scene because I know they're eager to. I remember John was kind of a little crabby, a little edgy, and I remember he picked on you a little bit, Ron.
Did he?
In front of Hanks and I. Hanks was sitting on my brand new car,
Really?
smudging it up and denting it and everything. And Candy was kind of
Cranky about it?
little cranky, and Tom and I were worried, is he going to ruin the scene? We were all worried. Was he going to cross the line and ruin the scene?
Funny boy.
He didn't like that I was making him shoot.
All right, here comes, I have to say, in all the movies we've done, my favorite on the set comedy moment comes on the back side of this scene when they resume playing after the conversation.
Well, I did feel, look, this fatigue that John's feeling is a very real thing. He was just so hungover and so resentful that I was just making him do the scene. But he was great in it. It was perfect, actually.
Well, he goes beyond perfect. That's the thing I wanted to. There's the moment coming up where he's going to hit himself in the head with the racquetball,
Right?
and it was not. It was assumed that could not be done. That it would be done in cuts.
That was always the plan.
He would serve the ball and it would come somewhere in the general direction of his head.
And then I would do a cutaway of a ball hitting him on the head.
Right. And serendipitously, just magically, the ball did hit him in the head. He did it. But you watch it when we get to it, because what I loved about him is most actors, if that had happened, knowing that they're not supposed to take the fall in that cut.
Right.
You know, the director's supposed to yell cut after the shot, would have just like turned and smiled, gone, wow, look at that. Look what I did. John, because he's, as I say, a comedy animal,
Right.
he sensed immediately that he had accidentally discovered gold.
Right.
And you just, when it gets to it, just watch what he does with no hesitation whatsoever.
And thank God the camera operator stayed with him, too.
Yeah, and Tom also.
Yeah.
Tom immediately reacts to it. In the meantime, he's being very funny here also.
Yeah.
Goes to the Coast Guard, through some
Because we're talking, we're trying to be real. We're trying to say, you know, from Tom's point of view, what
And I think having that hangover helped.
I
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I
in,
probably-
in
I
this
think
per-
it- yes,
in
I
that
agree with you, Bob.
performance,
Look, I'm being
look
But
at him.
also, he's asking. Tom is asking the real questions that a thinking character should ask
Right.
about what's going on with himself and this girl. So to try to ground it in some sort of human behavior.
extremely liberal. I'm a freewheeling dude. You're in love with this girl, and you're trying to convince yourself you're not.
And the other great thing about this scene is it's funny. There are jokes, and they're playing it absolutely for real.
Yeah.
You hold a beer, that'll be your handicap. Oh, we're gonna play? Yeah. I'm gonna teach you a lesson in humility. Humility 101.
That was real beer too.
Was it, Ron?
Yeah, a little hair of the dog.
Boom. No hesitation.
Yeah, just went right down.
We were all so shocked.
Yeah, it was incredible. Stroke of luck.
Came to hear. You call us and tell us that you have stretched the frontiers of paleontology and zoology. And we interrupt important, serious
Howard
work.
Morris
Howard
Fly
Morris from
here
the
to
show of
Louisville.
shows.
from the show of shows, and also he had played Ernest T. Bass on the Andy Griffith Show.
Call the comic
And was a
book
good director. He directed a number of the Andy Griffith episodes as well.
Yeah, I think he may have also directed some Dick Van Dyke episodes.
One time when I was a kid, doing a scene, I was in such pain, jammed into to get into a camera position. I was jammed up against the edge of a door in a car, and the handle was digging me in the arm. And he said, "Is that real uncomfortable?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Good. That way you know you're in the right spot."
This was a good lesson for us. We wrote this, and it made us nervous. He's like, how are you going to get this thing in her apartment? What's the logic behind it? The audience didn't even, they were
Right.
just so thrilled.
Yeah.
This is
Well, Bob, this is a movie.
Is
No,
it?
no, but
No, but I'm
sometimes
saying, but look at
sometimes
it.
it's important to be a logic Nazi, up to a point, just to to ask the questions, even if you,
Well,
if you go ahead,
Brian,
you
but
should
Brian,
ask.
these guys came in with $1.
Yeah, yeah.
But my
Like
theory
you
about
deliver a filing cabinet.
my theory about this kind of thing is that you earn the right to stretch the truth.
Yeah.
And stretch the logic by being logical. So if you set up a world and you establish a kind of a credibility, and the characters are winning, and the audience is going with the story, that at a certain point, if you want to take a leap, they'll go with you. I don't think you could do this in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Absolutely.
What's happened to you? You were the brightest student in my class. True. Emotionally, you were 12 years old.
I was 12 years old.
That's right. That's right. And look what
Very
you've
funny.
become. A schmuck.
I was a mermaid in New York City.
That was a PG.
You mean this
Yeah.
this
Oh, yeah.
naked girl? How come she's got legs?
She has legs out of the water. She has fins in the water. You taught me that, Dr. Zidell, don't you remember? You taught me all the legends. You used to bring me into your office. You used to show me charts on the walls of where sailors had claimed they saw mermaids.
Walter, that was for fun, for relaxation, not for you to build your whole life on.
I'm going to prove to you, and to everyone else, that that girl is a mermaid.
How? You gonna get her wet so everybody sees she has fins?
Bum, bum, bum.
Third act. It's third act.
Kick it up a notch. Raise the stakes.
Yeah, do we now? This is what I call the Wile E. Coyote section of the movie.
So Wile E. Coyote.
Look at this. He drove with 2 buckets.
And they didn't spill all over the back of the car.
Come on, guys. We don't have a lot of screen time to mess around.
I know.
Excuse me.
This is actually shot so well, Ron.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, because you didn't let the audience get ahead of us.
People love this. They
Yeah.
love him getting smacked.
that hand was actually something that we added later. It was blue screened in because I had him going close to camera and going out of focus. It wasn't quite getting the laugh that I wanted, and then got the idea of adding the hand to take it to black, and then we could go with the punches, and it created a better laugh. This was a strange night of shooting because
Oh, God,
Daryl
with the
Hannah.
potatoes? I was there that night.
Tom Hanks actually did that. He flicked it over there, effectively hitting that guy.
That's Ray Milan's brother.
Yeah, doesn't it look like him?
Daryl Hannah was so nervous about doing this scene because she was then, I don't know about now, a rigid, strict vegetarian. And it was not for health reasons. It was deeply philosophical for her. And this is a scene where ultimately she's going to bite into a lobster, and she was worried about how we were going to do it. And we made sort of fake lobsters that were made out of sugar or something.
It was a vegetable, actually.
I think they filled it with potato or something.
Well, no. See, the fake one didn't work. The
really?
sort of the glass one, the sugar glass lobster didn't work. So then I'm holding a real lobster, and I'm looking at it, and I'm the shell's kind of soft, and I bit it. And I said, "Oh, look, Daryl, you can just bite into it." And she almost started to cry because there was real meat inside. So then we went back in. We got potatoes and maybe like string cheese or something to give it a little substance. Hearts of palm or something.
Hearts of palm, that's what it was. That's right.
And stuffed it so that that's not lobster meat. And the first time she did it, she bit into it and burst into tears. And then she saw that it was okay, and she felt better about it.
But this lobster scene was...
Hey, gangway for acting now, my friends.
But the lobster scene was a real part of the iconography of the film.
Oh, without a doubt. And
everybody talked about that scene.
Also hugely entertaining and unusual.
All right, Babalu, go ahead, present yourself.
Well, he's got a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Well, this was a little sort of a Teflon ice rink that we created.
It was cold enough to be real ice.
Yeah, but we couldn't afford to get on the Rockefeller Center ice. And
this was before they had one in Central Park, right?
Yeah, they didn't have one in Central Park.
Now they do, pretty much where you shot it, isn't it?
And no, it's more in the park. This is just right on the edge. Right, see, there's the Plaza Hotel.
Right
in the background. So there's a monument. I'm not sure who the statue is of.
It's me.
Right there, but that's Fifth Avenue.
It's me.
Is that you? You're in the statue?
Rudy the Skate Man.
I think you were sick with the flu around this time too, by the way, Ron. I'm serious.
that?
I think you were. Because I said to Cheryl, I think Ron's mad at me. But you were mad. You were just making a movie.
I guess I did it very badly.
I actually remember that I hadn't seen Cheryl and my daughter for maybe about a month when we were shooting this, because Cheryl was going to AFI as a writing fellow, and she showed up this night, and it really made me feel great. We were shooting this particular setup, and I saw her walking across the street, and I
I thought it
cheered
had
up.
to do with me.
But the drama of this moment is critical, where he asks her to marry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we just don't know why she's despondent.
Why?
Yes.
And ultimately saying no. You just
Yeah.
can't.
There's always those old
I know
phrases.
you have some
No is interesting, yes isn't.
Yes, right.
It's...
What,
Yes, no, yes.
Well, you're dying. You were once a man. Whatever it is, I don't care. You can tell
Again,
me.
Hanks is playing it absolutely for real. They both are, and that's important.
Please make them wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah, he's really irritated.
Yeah.
I mean, in character, he's hurt.
You want to skate some more?
Like Babalu often is.
I remember asking Daryl, I said, have you ice skated a lot? She said, no, I never really have. I said, well, do you want to practice? She said, well, no, I won't really need to.
Alan.
And she's just such a good athlete. She put the skates on, and look, she's very beautiful out there.
I can remember years later, Babalu and I work on A League of Their Own, and her name came up for a moment. Somebody said, could she play ball? I both said, I have no idea if she's ever played ball in her life, but I guarantee you in 2 days she'll be able to play ball.
Yeah.
They look very happy.
Well, now, why shouldn't they be happy, huh? They get to spend their whole lives together, don't they?
Is this really what happens to water when it gets cold?
Yeah.
Where I come from, it never gets cold.
Oh, well, hey, what a breakthrough there. You know, you just really opened up to me there.
And the character is so vulnerable when he starts, being
Well, it's called sarcasm. What,
sarcastic.
you don't have one either?
You just it's just such a shock to her.
Well, now they don't have anything, do they? They don't have ice, and they don't have music, and they don't have clothes. Because what kind of a place is this, Madison?
Well, here's
There's
Babalu.
Babalu Mandel, ladies and gentlemen.
Rudy the Skate Man.
Rudy.
Madison, hey, those skates are ready. Look, just give me 1 second, okay? Madison!
Yeah, that was fun. I took a skate to the thigh.
That was funny. I forgot about
Good joke,
that.
though, coming up.
Sorry! Let her go. Show some dignity, for Christ's sake.
While he's pulling the skates off his
Right.
legs.
But I remember the night before we shot that scene, I got a letter.
I got a letter.
And it's from Babalu saying,
got up
if I'm going to play this part, I need a joke. So I thought I was suddenly dealing with a big star. You're a writer, write a
It
joke.
was 2 a.m. I left. I got out of the hotel room and went up to your room and put that under your note.
Realized
that
you
true,
needed a
Babalu?
joke.
Yes, don't
At
waste
2 in the
my
morning
time.
you did that?
2 in the morning, I'm saying. I need a laugh.
You were right.
Yeah, and you got one.
You got fired, but you were right.
I had a similar experience with Rod on Parenthood. I was playing the usher at the beginning of the movie, and at one point, one of my lines didn't ring true to me. And I started discussing it with him. Lines we wrote. What do I need this for? Oh, we once had a much in the script, not on film. We had a much longer sequence here, where he got into this argument with his brother.
Oh yes.
About how he had messed up this romance and everything, and he took him in the freezer.
Right.
And hung him on a hook in the in the produce freezer. They talked about their childhood, and their relationship, and everything. It was not a bad scene, but absolutely slowed the movie down.
Yeah. It was actually a good scene.
Thanks.
Which they put in Apollo 13.
And it seemed peculiar.
Yes.
I had forgotten all about this turn. I forgot about this moment.
I did too.
Yeah, simple was better.
Yeah.
She just came back.
Yeah.
What?
We shot this particular scene in 4 different places within that location, always trying to get the nice backlight. And Don Peterman kept saying it's a very romantic moment. Let's not be literal about where the scene is staged. We shot the master shot in one place, we shot the close-up of Tom in another place, we shot the close-up of her in another place, all to try to get the look.
Now, was that from him? I mean, did that come from?
Yeah, that was definitely from Don.
But see, if we get the blood test today, no pressure, mind you. But if we get the blood test today, as soon as you tell me, well, then we can get married.
Yeah, and she does not want to take blood tests.
Right.
I was born to be married. I just so happen to come from a long line of married people. My mom and dad, they were married. Their moms and dads, they were married too.
Who is that man?
Yeah. No, but they weren't ahead of you.
No.
They were not ahead of you. And then they got another laugh because they related the cast, which you gave them just this this grotesque cast. I
Yeah.
mean,
Not only that, look at that bar. That's
it's
so-
like the worst break of an arm in the history of the universe. You know? And you didn't give them time to guess again.
And Eugene sells it right there.
Yeah.
It's always nice to have a callback.
Yep.
I love you, and I'm not going to lose you again. So we are getting married tonight. We're going to get in the car and we're going to drive to Maryland. I don't know why I didn't think about it before. Freddie always gets married in Maryland. You don't need a blood test down there.
It's a nice subtle joke that Freddie always gets married in Maryland.
That's okay.
I like
Hey,
that.
that's all right. That's
Just
all right.
passes, you know,
We'll
but
just
it's...
go to Maryland after we have dinner with the president. Hey, we'll even already be dressed up.
Alan, I haven't.
I know. You haven't told me this big secret of yours. That's okay. You can tell me in the car on the way to Maryland.
It's getting fuller. I think that was a post-production ad, shooting the moons. I think that was a little bit like the clocks in High Noon, where we wanted to add a little more tension, and so we shot some plates. We had shot the plates while we were filming principal photography, and we thought maybe we could save the money and not have to put the moons into those shots.
What kind?
Because those are matte
Young
shots.
kind.
Those are combinations.
The older ones are a little hard to deliver. We're getting married tonight. Oh, thank you.
Why is this bread in here instead of out there? The butter is hard like a rock. Why? Do you have a broken arm?
Oh, it's fractured 16 places.
Why are you here?
Look, he didn't change the glasses. Ron, what were you thinking, man?
Sometimes you don't have time to do things like that. You have to go down and get a prescription. The guy won't give you the prescription right away. He wants to test you again.
Okay.
He kept the same glasses because it was funnier than that. God bless him.
Those were his lucky glasses.
And by this time, what I loved is the audience by now was, what do they call it? The rule of 3. By this time, the audience is sure he can't accomplish anything.
Right.
That he's completely ineffectual as a villain.
Yes.
And then that's the nice twist back again.
People are the big apple of my eye. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's great to be back in New York.
They used the same thing in the line of fire, didn't they?
Alert, alert. Table 5. Set busboy with a suspicious hump.
Suspicious, huh?
He's reaching. Get him now, get him now.
Oh, this has nothing to do with the press. This has nothing to do with the press.
Well, I guess he just found out what his dinner cost.
It's unpleasant sometimes to write intentionally lame jokes.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in Bob Hollins, you have a candidate for Congress who is in touch with the people. A man who built up the business left to him by his grandfather. What was once a small pushcart on wheels is now one of
Ellen?
the largest fast food chains in America.
It's time for me to tell you.
And how did he do it? With perseverance, with
Right now.
ingenuity, with fresh ideas,
I'm not here.
more importantly,
Fine, fine. Sure.
with fresh meat.
Let's go outside where I can do more damage.
I'm not crazy. There is a mermaid in there. Shut up. I'm not. I'm a scientist.
Remember, I drove everybody at the studio a little bit crazy by shooting the scene this way with the combination of the slow motion and the regular
Yeah.
Yes,
speed
I
and
do,
multiple
yeah.
cameras, and took a little more time, I guess.
I know that guy. I saw him up on cable.
I just love this moment. I mean,
It was really important.
It actually was It actually made me cry when I saw the first assembly of it.
I felt it was crucial that it
I remember
be really
telling you.
painful.
I remember I said to you, "Ron, this made me cry," and you're kidding. You're kidding. I said, "No. It just really does."
Well, I shot it absolutely I tried to make it as real and painful as it possibly could be for her. And really
you-
try to shoot it like an assassination scene.
Yeah, you humiliated her.
Yeah. We combined, slow motion with normal camera speed, 24 frames, just to distort things.
I was right. Behold the mermaid.
Well, it's just so it's just so tragic.
I really felt that if we could make a fantasy moment like this play for real, play for honest emotion, that it would.
It was a good choice, though.
powerful for the
Whoever
audience.
made the choice, it was a good choice to have her revealed to him in the worst possible way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
I don't know where.
I don't know. I don't either
Yeah.
remember what how the idea
I
evolved.
Well, I'll take credit.
Buckwalter, sir. Gentlemen, anything?
No change.
This is so us. You have the drama. Everybody's still.
That's right.
They're off put.
I remember feeling that Hanks was so courageous to be in that tank naked for a whole day.
And he was absolutely matter of fact about it. He just thought it was a great joke. Knew it was important.
Let's try some interaction.
Fine. Jim?
No, not us.
There's a creepiness here that I always thought was really good.
And again, we went for more of a almost
A
sort
horror
of-
science fiction moment.
and a feel, and the way the place is lit, and the way it looks and sounds. There's no music,
Because you want this to be a creep out for him.
right?
You know, you don't want him to get past the fact that what she is.
Yeah.
I guess I thought you might be one.
Yeah. I guess so.
You said whatever my secret was, you'd understand.
I know.
Thought at least I was a human being. And
We talked about scoring this, and we had some music for it, but I really felt that just that haunting beep was more disturbing and gave the scene more power and emotion.
And I just think, that being minimal was
Water 12
much more
ounces, obviously
impactful. And
just
then the beautiful
Get him out of
piece of dialogue of, I thought you were human.
did you mean? Did you know that she was a mermaid?
Did you actually make love to her, Alan?
Oh, no, that's a stupid question.
Did she eat worms, Mr. Bauer?
Mr. Bell, would you have to make love to her in water?
Hey, listen, Jack, that's none of your business.
Is she some kind of a mutant or a missing link of any kind?
No, she's not.
Alan, I'm from People magazine. Is it true that she's off of seeing Burt Reynolds?
There it is.
People magazine was still relatively fresh
Yeah.
at the time. We were just there's another line I use all the time. Leave him alone. It's the reading. It's just you know.
Now I got to tell you a story about this. We were shooting this scene, and we were getting ready to have to go to lunch. And if we went over into a meal penalty, it was going to be very expensive. And so we got ready to shoot a shot there. Well, it's actually cut out. John comes in the car and goes driving down the block, and something didn't work. And I made John back up, and we do it again real fast. I said, just throw it in reverse. I called down on and he did. He backed up, and then because it was a one-way street, police officer who was in charge of the set at that time actually walked out and said, "That's a $100 autograph," and gave John Candy a ticket.
I remember that, Ron.
For having to back up.
What are you looking at? You never saw
I was
guys
so
fuck
shocked
a
by that,
before.
actually.
Me too.
Get back to work.
Oh, Mr. Bauer, you had a million messages. I wrote them down.
The scene coming up I always thought was kind of actually the scene that came as close to stating a theme as any in the movie.
Ted Turner, Time, Newsweek, Marineland,
Where John is talking to Tom.
and Mrs. Paul.
Come on now, Mrs.
Yeah, people like that because it sort of stitched the two guys together.
Yeah.
Fishman? Fishman?
That's what they're calling you on TV, too. Personally, I think it's kind of cute.
He's like a little rascal, John.
Yeah.
So how is she?
How is she? She's a mermaid. I don't understand. All my life, I've been waiting for someone, and when I find her, she's a fish.
Nobody said love's perfect.
Oh,
So that line from John, nobody said love's perfect. It's a laugh, it's a joke, but to me, it also states the theme of the movie.
every day,
The unpredictability of love, and the sort of the fruitlessness of searching for something for perfection in something as kind of emotional and imperfect as love.
And then as Lowell, Babalu and I, we never liked to leave the thematic line of the movie sort of intact. It's like too blatant. So we'd come back with, yeah, but it's usually, let me not be, but it's usually human.
Right.
Always just try to,
Come in under it a bit.
Come under it, yeah.
Which reminds me a bit of the roller coaster speech, Grandma's roller coaster speech in Parenthood, which you guys wrote.
Yeah, which was, with if she's so brilliant, what's she doing in our neighbor's car? You know, is always that just take yourself too seriously when you're pitching a theme.
Of course, we degraded the tail, made her look pale and sickly. I always thought that was a really beautiful, haunting shot of her. Again, Daryl plays it so beautifully. You got to remember she's holding her breath.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
In all these,
Yes, I keep
poignant
thinking,
moments that you
every
really
time I
can't
see the movie,
see.
I think, I wonder what the trick was.
Yeah.
And you go, there was none.
No trick.
Yeah.
She just, she just thoroughly understood the character and emotionally committed to it. It was, and had the physical capability to do it.
Are we considering how the subject is responding to the examination procedure itself?
I'm considering everything. Ah, yes, well, I'm sure you are, Dr. Ross. How stupid of me, of course. But let me ask you this. Are you considering the possibility that you might be a sadistic pig? While we are
This is the
burying
Jerry
our
Bruckheimer
souls-
submarine shot.
I tell you, I have never considered
That would be Gene Hackman.
You're not a member of my team. Run along now, Walter, and see if you can't find a unicorn.
And that's how business really works.
Yeah. I remember there was a lot of debate. Oh, this was a special tail that we had made that could curve in a totally unnatural fashion. And Daryl had to tuck down in under a false bottom in order to make it, fit her body in there.
I have the vapors.
But we'd originally had music through this whole scene, and I remember it was kind of a breakthrough on the scoring stage or on the mixing stage to hold the music until this moment.
What's that?
Painkiller, Mr. Cornbluth. Whoever punched you cracked your tooth. We are going to be very close to the nerve.
I don't deserve any painkiller. Just Brill.
Oh, you want
And this again, the climax of this scene, the button of this scene is again, you write it, but there's only a handful of comic actors who could fulfill it.
Right.
You know, when this is over, you know, it's
Hey, put that down. Put that needle down. You stay away from me. Hey, I said let's talk. Come on, put it down. Stay away from me. Put it.
he just immediately turns coward.
Yeah.
What a week I'm having!
You've destroyed my life, Cornbluth.
I didn't mean to.
Look, he's got a bib on now. He hasn't had a bib for the last 5 shots, but I like this take better. So I decided this is one of those matching is for sissies
I
moments.
just didn't think about how it would affect you. Or her.
I'm really a nice guy.
If I had friends, you could ask them. I've been on the phone.
By the way, no
to
one
every
ever caught the
employee
bib
of United
mismatch.
States government.
Really?
Calling them
No.
sons of bitches.
Well, this is sort of the days before the internet.
Yeah.
Nobody can even get in to see her. I can.
See, now, this has been a serious discussion, and you've forgotten.
That's
you
right,
know,
yeah.
and then the execution of
And
it.
now he's Jerry Lewis.
Yeah.
You know, part of it is good writing and directing that you take the audience's mind off. You know, show him your left hand and then hit him with the right hand.
Right.
But so much of it is just he's funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's just years
Well,
and years
and-
to figure out how to walk funny, how to talk funny, how to sit funny. You know, this is the only scene that John and Eugene. This is the only day they work the same day.
Oh, is that right? That's
Well, I mean,
true.
actually,
Yes.
too. It's one day in New York to shoot
Yeah.
the exterior.
Oh, and then
and then
inside.
and then this is still New York.
right at the museum.
Yeah, but then when they really get down in there, this is the only day they in California they work together. John had been in Toronto the day before.
And he brought us Toronto Blue Jays hats and jerseys
But
back as a present.
He took the red eye. He was a bad flyer.
Oh, no. No, that story was just to fool the press.
Oh. Hey, you know, I'm half Swedish. Hey, hur har resan varit hittills?
This was a great idea you guys wrote.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, just a second. Vad gör en svensk vetenskapsman så långt väg från Sverige?
Well, again, it's getting comedy
Hey, Rory.
out of trouble.
Yes.
You're going, okay, we set up this joke that everybody likes, that they said they're Swedish, and that this guy's Swedish. That's funny.
Right.
Now, how do we get out of it?
Right.
But think about it. He just said he had a 12-inch penis.
The guy let him through.
Yeah, he's really kind of pleased to admit it.
I mean, your finer nudie films come from Sweden.
And it's just plausible enough
Yeah.
Yeah.
that you're with it.
Afternoon, Buckwalter.
I'm sorry, Dr. Cornbluth. Not supposed to let anybody in there until Dr. Ross gets back with them Swede people.
These are the Swedish doctors.
These are Swedes? Isn't that one right there kind of dark, you know?
He's dirty from the trip. Come on, Buckwalter, let us in.
Oh, no, I'm not supposed
What are
to.
you afraid of, Buckwalter? Do you think we're gonna steal the mermaid?
What are we gonna do? Fold her in
He's
half?
doing a Swedish accent.
Yeah. It happened.
Good joke, there. Good joke.
Yeah.
Beautiful lighting from Peterman. You know, again, this is not your usual sort of romantic comedy lighting. Ethereal and gorgeous.
Yes, but you get used to it.
I think there were a couple of screenings where we got an applause on that kiss.
Yeah.
This a big secret you've been keeping from me? Is it that you're a mermaid, or is there something else?
No, that's it. Alan, don't feel guilty
Guilty about what?
Good thing, nothing.
about not loving me anymore.
Okay.
All the time we were together, you always knew how I was feeling. Can't you tell now?
Again, this is real conventional romantic comedy stuff, and yet it's played for real, and and you really welcome it as an audience member because the rest of the movie's been so unconventional, primarily because she's a mermaid.
Yeah.
Oh my God! That man! Cover his face, for God's sake! What happened? What happened? That creature! Dr. Johansson bent down to examine her, and suddenly these rays came right out of her eyes. Don't go in there, man! She'll melt your face right off.
Yeah, this is the kind of writing we always find so difficult.
Yeah.
You know, to actually like, that how-to writing.
Yeah.
How do you get them in? How do you get them out? You know, that spy versus spy.
I know that he backhanded him with a cast.
Yeah, that spy versus spy writing. You know,
Yeah.
how do you trick? How do you fool? You know, that kind
Well,
of thing. It's a
well,
different
look-
kind of writing.
No, you're right, Lowell, because it's impossible to get her out, so it has to be all finessed and lubricated with comedy, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
Good afternoon, Dr. Ross. Who are your guests?
Doctors Yared and Johansson from the Swedish.
And the other thing that worked is we always knew it would be funnier when they came in if they didn't find an empty tank.
Right.
But found John Candy there, and that dovetailed nicely with the idea of getting her out with a,
Yeah.
with a thing covering her, as if they were pulling candy out of the.
Hiya, boys. Come on in. The water's fine.
Great talent. A joy to work with on the movie, and we miss him, right?
A true artist and generous spirit.
Genuinely great comedian. Now, this was the 80s, and almost every movie, drama or comedy, then ended with a car chase.
Yeah. And especially, of course, I was still fresh off my Roger Corman experiences. I had a lot of confidence with this section.
Yeah.
I knew how to crash cars, if nothing else.
But how about the helicopter run? You're not allowed to do helicopters over Central Park.
Oh,
we slipped
yeah,
one
I guess
in.
we
We
did
had a
there.
minute.
Oh, there it is.
We had a minute where we got that helicopter in.
Yeah. This is amazing. I mean, this is a sort of a turnaround in New York City because at that point they hadn't been terribly cooperative, but we laid out a plan to actually shut down Columbus Circle midday. And their cooperation, of course, was crucial, but it was a big logistical day.
We did it! That was my plan. Father, you're a genius. I am a genius. But you came in with the Swedish thing. That was a brilliant touch.
You came in with the Swedish thing.
Nobody likes me when they first meet me.
Pretty imposing looking guy we had there.
Does that car have Jersey plates?
Yes. Yes, it does.
So here we are. We had the whole intersection with Broadway, all blocked off. There's our one moment of shooting over Central Park.
This is Brian. Now, there was a point where Ron and Tom Hanks and Daryl and John Candy all said, "Brian, be in the movie." They tried to talk me into being in the movie. We'll get to it. And all I had to say was taxi. And I just couldn't say the words. I remember looking over at John Candy. Ron was trying to direct me. I looked over at John Candy and Daryl Hannah and Tom Hanks. And Tom Hanks said, saw him whisper in slow motion, "He can't even say taxi."
And he was never heard from again.
Here we are shooting down in the Wall Street section.
Yeah.
This is the section that I was referring to.
My car's no less. Now I'm gonna finish it.
His first and only noble gesture.
Get the hell out of here.
Eugene Levy as action hero.
Well, but that was their duty.
Right.
So he would, setting it up in an almost semi-corny way.
Right,
to, like,
right.
A hero moment.
Now,
And this
now the
is,
reality is
the
setting in.
reality is he ain't John Wayne. It just ain't gonna happen.
What a week I'm having. Move that thing out of here. Up yours, Gomer. I'm waiting for a
Call back.
Same taxi driver. from
Same
the first
taxi
scene.
driver.
He's actually a pretty good actor, Joe Gaffazi.
Yeah, he is. A very good actor. This was the day when the Disney executive said, "You've got to get out of here in one day, no matter what," even though it was scheduled for 2. And we had to shoot everything from the chase, through jumping in the water, through the rescue, all in one day.
Yeah. This is Lowell. I was directing something at TV once, and I said, it was scheduled for a certain amount of days. I said, could you just rewrite this so that it only will take one day? And I said, I think I can. One of them turned to the other and seriously said, I told you this guy could direct.
That's really funny.
Remember when you were 8 years old and you fell off the ship? You were safe under the water, weren't you?
Yeah.
You were with me.
You mean that was real? You mean that was you? That was you!
I always wondered if we would get away with not referencing it until the very end of the movie. I was always just a little concerned about it. I probably even talked to you guys about it.
Yeah.
You had confidence that it would hold.
Can't ever come back.
And it did for audiences.
I love these rules that we create
Yeah.
Yeah.
to create tension.
Yeah.
But you have to have them,
I know.
even
And there
if
was-
they don't make sense.
And remember, there was, I think, in your guys' first draft, didn't he not go?
Boy.
I think all of our wives read the draft and said, "Are you crazy? He's got to go."
If he doesn't go, you go.
I really think that happened. It's the voice of Mike Hill, one of the editors.
You have to go.
Pretty big day of shooting with helicopters and
I love you, Madison.
crashes and love scenes.
Remember, all our stunt people had to get hepatitis shots to
That's right.
jump in the East River here.
The underwater part there was in the Bahamas. The other was the East River.
Well, it wasn't a fait accompli when you know, you work so hard to try to craft it, because that when she jumps in, you don't know as an audience he's going to jump
Well,
in.
that's right. I don't think people thought he would.
And yeah, and I would say the best way to do that is to actually believe, as a writer, that you could finish the script
Right.
without him doing it. Maybe not in a way that the audience would adore, but that it would make complete. You would have an ending.
Yeah.
This is Love in the Afternoon Sideways.
Yes.
Sideways.
Yes. Gary Cooper pulling Audrey Hepburn off the platform.
Yes.
Everything's been done.
All the East River. Still the same shooting day, by the way.
How many days of first unit was this film, Ron?
I think it was 66 or 68 days.
Mhm.
I think
Now-
that included the Bahamas.
And I would say the audience knew he wasn't going to die.
Right.
I would say that they'd have been ahead of us on.
No, I think it was 66 days, not including the Bahamas, as a matter of fact.
That's right, actually. And here we have some
That's
mermaid.
Lowell and
There's some mermaid heroics.
Right.
Shot really well. We get to see her power and how she
Action scene.
rescues her man.
Whoop. Little groin shot there.
It was simple. It was a simple idea that she'd remove their.
Yeah.
and
He's willing to fight dirty for the girl.
Yeah. Well, our heroes are never heroes.
Right,
you know,
right.
in that sense.
It's important.
Yeah. They always have to be a little goofed out.
One fine day.
Now, aren't these pickup shots that we had to get in the Cayman Islands? No,
No,
this
this
isn't.
is all the
That was
same-
later. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Love was rare.
Just about closes the chapter on all of our collective first hit.
I will never ever forget the day the movie opened,
Oh, I know.
and you and I were driving around in a limousine to visit the theaters.
We went to the AFCO.
The Avco Theater in Los Angeles, which is the same theater where American Graffiti had lines around the block about 10 years before. And I will never forget going and seeing the same size lines around the block for a movie that I had directed. And that was a great night, wasn't it, Brian?
Oh my God! It
we
was...
went around to other theaters. And
I remember when we went to that line and we got out of the car and we were on Wilshire Boulevard and looked at the line and we go, oh my God, it goes around the block. And we ran to the end of the line just to see how far it actually went.
and asked people what movie they were standing in line for.
Yeah, that's right.
And they said, Splash!
I actually waited in line.
Yeah.
I swear,
Yeah.
I did. I just got in the line and waited with my wife.
How sad you guys reliving the past.
Well, this has really been fun to revisit the movie because, as I said, I haven't seen it beginning to end, since it was released.
Here we go, our big time match shot.
We had a match shot here.
Of course, today would be
It would be all digital.
digital and
Computer
be
generated.
rich, three-dimensional.
Well, let's fix it.
We actually could.
If the studio wants to re-release it, we could work on it a little bit.
I see Lowell Gantz's name
Yeah.
high in the credits.
There's Babalu.
Babalu Mandel,
Babalu.
Cheryl
There's
Howard.
Oh yeah.
And every comedy in those days ended with a rock beat.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Always,
That's right.
always. So rock music kicked in as the leads, drove off whooping.
Oh,
Right.
you're right.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. This is John Thomas Lennox. He was really good
Yeah.
production manager.
He had my favorite phrase I ever heard from a production manager at AD. He used to say, "If there's no solution, there's no problem."
Right. Yeah.
I always loved that.
Oh, look, Will Jennings and Lee Holdridge.
Mike Nomad, swimming choreographer, really much more than that. And I actually asked him to play a role in the next movie I directed, Cocoon. But he really helped coordinate much of the underwater work, trained us all to dive, worked closely with Daryl Hannah on safety matters, and he was a great guy. Huge asset in this movie.
Retrospectively, based not only on the result of the movie and the creative result and financial result, it was kind of nice that we were sort of forced to shoot it down and dirty a little bit.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
made more money.
Well, it was a kind of a crossover movie for me because I'd done low budget Roger Corman films, television movies. Night Shift was a kind of a B plus studio movie in terms of the budget and the amount of time that we had. We had a good result, and despite the fact that we worked quickly, it was still this was probably the first movie that I directed that was about at the industry average.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we didn't have big stars, there were enough production complexities
Yeah.
that it wasn't an inexpensive movie. I think we wound up spending what, $10 million?
Really?
Yeah.